Hey folks, grab some popcorn because this week's feature presentation is brought to you by the two old frenemies of the Middle East, Iran and Israel. Now, we're not talking about your average diplomatic spat. Nope, this time Tehran went all in and launched 181 ballistic missiles into Israel. Yeah, you heard that right, 181. To be clear, this isn't your usual Tuesday fire drill. This was the largest barrage of missiles we've seen in recent memory. And the Iranians are calling it legal, rational, and legitimate. Let that sink in. Throwing nearly 200 warheads at your neighbor is just another day in the neighborhood, according to Iran. So, what exactly happened? The official story from Tehran is that this was a response to Israeli provocations and consistent attacks on Iranian sovereignty. But let's not pretend this is all that simple. Iran's been stockpiling its missile arsenal for years, and the timing of this attack feels like it had more to do with a show of power than anything else. For context, these weren't toy rockets. Some of these missiles, like the Zulfiqar and Chiam, are heavy hitters capable of delivering warheads over 1,000 kilometers. The strikes were aimed at several major Israeli regions, but here's where things get really interesting. Israel's missile defense systems, including the much-touted Iron Dome and the newer David Sling, managed to intercept most of the incoming fire. Despite a near-perfect defense record, one Palestinian was killed in the process. Talk about tragic irony. The world is now waiting to see how Israel will respond, but one thing is clear. Retaliation is not a question of if, but when. This brings us to Benjamin Netanyahu, the long-serving Prime Minister of Israel. Like clockwork, he declared that Iran had made a monumental mistake and would pay the price for this attack. Let's be real, Netanyahu's been waiting for an excuse to go after Iran's military and nuclear capabilities, and Tehran just handed him one on a silver platter. Israeli military officials, including spokesperson Daniel Agari, have already confirmed that a counterstrike is imminent. Israel, however, isn't known for hasty reactions. Instead, expect a calculated, surgical response designed to hit Iran where it really hurts. So what are Israel's options? First, there's Iran's oil infrastructure. Thanks to years of sanctions, Iran's economy is more fragile than a house of cards, and it relies heavily on oil exports to stay afloat. The majority of this oil, about 98%, flows through the Karg Island terminal in the Persian Gulf. Now, I'm not saying that Israel would strike Karg Island, but let's just say if it did, Iran's economy could be cut in half. The country's oil-dependent GDP would collapse, sending shockwaves through global markets. Not exactly a minor inconvenience, right? Then, of course, there's Iran's nuclear program. This is the big one. Israel has made it crystal clear that an Iranian bomb is a non-starter. If Tehran even gets close to acquiring nuclear weapons, Israel could launch a preemptive strike on the country's nuclear facilities, much like they did against Iraq's Osirak reactor in 1981. Iran's Natanz and Fordo facilities are heavily fortified, buried deep underground to avoid exactly this scenario. But Israel has been practicing with its bunker-busting bombs, and these sites are well within its military reach. Again, the message from Israel is simple: better to strike first than to be on the receiving end of a nuclear-armed Iran. There's another potential target here that can't be ignored: Iran's leadership. Tehran's theocratic government, led by Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, is no stranger to Israeli intelligence operations. Israel's Mossad has already pulled off several high-profile assassinations of Iranian scientists and military figures. In 2020, they killed Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, the father of Iran's nuclear program, in a James Bond-style ambush that still leaves security experts scratching their heads. Could we see a similar hit on Khamenei or one of his top generals? It's possible, but that's a risky move that could backfire by creating a martyr and rallying Iranians around their government. All of this leaves us with one big question: what's the endgame here? The Middle East has been teetering on the edge for decades, but this latest escalation feels different. Iran's missile strike isn't just about retaliation, it's about shifting the balance of power in the region. By showing that they can hit Israel with hundreds of missiles, Iran is sending a clear message to both Israel and its Western allies: we're not backing down. Meanwhile, Israel's allies, particularly the United States, are watching closely. With Washington's focus shifting to countering China and Russia, the Biden administration isn't keen on getting dragged into another Middle Eastern conflict. But make no mistake, Israel's security remains a top priority for the US, and if things get too out of hand, American military support won't be far behind. So, as the world holds its breath, one thing is certain: this isn't over. Far from it. Israel will retaliate, and when they do, the whole region will feel the shockwaves. Will this be the spark that ignites a larger conflict? Only time will tell. Stay tuned, folks, and that's a wrap. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into global conflicts. Until next time, stay safe and stay informed.